is up, creative athletes? My name is Chris David Garcia, or as my friends call me, CDG. I am here with Ross Yoshida. Hey. What's up, Ross?
What's going on? Good morning.
Christine Zambetti.
Hello, hello.
So this is a first. This is the first time we do a live recording. So, bear with us. We're going to have some fun. We're here in Detroit at Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan. Can we get loud for that? So Detroit has been an amazing host. The Lions are a phenomenal team. This stadium is beautiful. If you get a chance to visit Detroit, it'll blow your mind. The downtown is transformed. This stadium is like probably one of the best I've seen in the NFL. No offense to all the NFL teams that are here in the audience. Sorry. And some that are on stage. But if we will be announcing Connect 2025 soon. If you're not here, you should be here, and look out for that. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, and just shout out a city where we should host Connect. All right, 1, 2, 3. Montana. Oh, Atlanta. South Beach. Okay, South Beach. Got it. Where? Vegas? Oh, I don't know.
That's dangerous.
That's dangerous. I don't know if anybody would show up to day 2.
Yeah, you guys were already late here.
Yes. Dang.
Oh, sorry.
Hot take from Christine.
Sorry, not hot.
All right, well, let's get into that, okay? So today we are talking with Christine Zambetti, design director for the Tennessee Titans, but she has done some incredible things. We met her, I think maybe when you were at Arkansas, but previously to the Titans, you were with the 49ers, working with a great group. A lot of 49ers are here as well. Shout out 49ers. Does everyone know Noah? Yeah, I don't know about the GOAT. No, he's a great young man, and he'll make you laugh. So if you're down this morning, go find Noah. But she come every team that you touch has just been phenomenal. You were at the Arkansas Razorbacks and prior to that, and then the Auburn Tigers. So NCAA pro sports. We're gonna get into that. I'm gonna pass it off to Ross, and we'll just honestly, if you guys are ready, let's just get into it. Does that work? All right, let's do it.
All right. What's up, Christine?
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, when we first met you, it was what, 2016?
15, I think, at the
15
Houston one.
At Connect, and you were still with the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Yep.
So, tell us a little bit about your story and a little bit about your journey since then, and then a little bit before that.
Yeah, so I started out at Auburn, went to school there, studied graphic design, got my job as an intern, and so kind of got my start in sports design while I was there. Learned the ins and outs of like what it looks like to work in a sports team. Worked there for my senior year and then about 6 months after. And then I got a job with the University of Arkansas, and they had never had a full-time designer on their athletic department. So it's like...
Really?
Mm-hmm. You get thrown into 19 different sports, like all of the student athletes, ticket sales, and they're like, hey, you're fresh out of college, but like, you're in charge, so...
Sound familiar?
Yeah.
I think they do that at the pro level too.
Yeah. So kind of figured out the way to... start a team there. So having been the first full-time designer, I was able to build my own department. I was able to hire on a full-time designer who took over my job when I left there, and then an intern who I think is still there now. So to be able to kind of create a culture of sports design was kind of cool. And then got the job with the 49ers and was there for 6 years. Got to see 3 NFC championship games, got to work a Super Bowl. It was a pretty awesome run. And then now I'm a design director with the Titans, which was kind of a move home, and it was a pretty exciting time there to be there too at the new stadium. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a phenomenal resume. And along, like you said, along those I guess let's call it a journey. You're kind of one of those rare professionals that experience like NCAA and what it involves to recruit and have to deal with alumni,
Yeah.
a faculty, and all that. But at the same time, then you're working in the pro arena, which is, of course, just a whole nother beast. Both of them, and I've talked to a lot of NCAA. There's a lot of NCAA designers here, creatives here, and just the multi-sports. It kind of sounds like, it's not doing as many sports and then going to kind of maybe one sport, but honestly, I feel like the work's the same, the level's the same. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think it's just different work. Like no matter what team you're on, you're gonna have plenty of stuff to do all the time. I think with NCAA, when you have 19 sports that you're trying to brand, but all within the same like umbrella brand, and then you're working with 19 different coaches that all have unique perspectives, that you're like trying to create this system, but also you need to be flexible to like maybe the track team doesn't want the same thing as the football team. So how do you cater to each of those uniquely? Whereas, NFL, you can really just hone in on that one team and that one brand, and how do you build that like across the country and internationally and everything else?
How many people out here have trouble just dealing with one sport? 19 sports. So I guess that would be the main difference between working for, shout out NCAA people though, for working for multiple sports.
Oh yeah.
I guess that would be the major difference, the multiple sports versus one sport. But what are some other differences working for a university athletic department and a pro sports team, for instance?
Yeah, I think there's a little more flexibility in NCAA to some extent. You have a little more freedom. The NFL has a lot of rules that you need to abide by, whether it's uniforms or graphics or assets that you're allowed to work with. So you have to work within that little sandbox. And the NCAA, there's a little bit more freedom of nobody's necessarily
policing or
not as much. And then I think right now NIL has changed the game. So I wasn't there with NIL, but that recruiting and everything else, like you almost have to have people there to help brand the student athletes when they're in college, which is a whole different ball of wax.
I would imagine access to the athletes, right?
Yeah.
I would just think, well, I don't know. I think, the one rule that I always have, and I've worked with some smaller teams, outside of sports, and in that spring training, we would, work with some minor league players that were coming up. I just always kind of approached it with really treated everyone like an all-star player, whether college, pro, minors, international. But I was just curious, how is your experience being at the Titans or even at the 49ers with like access to players and, their willingness to do these, creative campaigns that you guys put up with? And we'll get into one that we really want to talk to you about.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the players are usually pretty open to when you give them direction on different media days and things like that. Like, we're here to make them look good. You can't say that that's always true. We were talking about it before, but sometimes you get players that don't necessarily want to do it that day or whatever it might be. So you have to work around those parameters. But end of the day, like a lot of them are really just there to do their job and they'll do what you ask.
Yeah.
And, like, I think some of these shows like receivers and quarterbacks, like you get to see behind the scenes, and like George Kittle is just as cool and down to earth in person as he seems when he's on that show. So when you ask him to do something, he's like always down for whatever you might need.
That's great.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about the embroidery campaign?
Yeah, so Christine, while you were with the Niners, you came up with this very unique campaign that utilized actual embroidery. I'm not sure if you did that yourself or you had someone do it, but I think you did it yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So that was really thinking outside of the box. Now, how did you come up with this idea?
Yeah.
And more importantly, I think people want to know, how did you get that, like get the sign off on that from above? How did you get that approved? How did you get buy-in on that, the out of the box idea?
Yeah, so that was 2020. Some people were baking bread. Some people were, taking up new hobbies. I took up embroidery. I had never done it before. It was a new skill. So we were, prior to the shutdown, we were trying to launch a new campaign with Faithful to the Bay. And one of the assets was like the satin jackets that are those kind of starter jackets that you would see like Joe Montana wearing back in the day.
Yeah.
And so part of the campaign was like, oh, we want really detailed shots of like the stitching and everything that went into what made that cool. And then we saw a campaign, I think it was Stance did something somewhat similar with the embroidered images. And yeah, 2020, I had a lot of time on my hands. So just watched some videos. I think each one I progressively learned new techniques and skills, like ended up adding beads at one point for New Orleans. Just got more and more complex. I worked with one of our designers who's more illustrative based. So some of them, like he would help sketch it. Then I would print out on just like a watercolor paper, the player, or cut them out and paste them on top. I would like draw and pencil where it needs to go. And then I'd just sit there for, it probably was like 10 hours per graphic.
Oh, wow.
And every Saturday I would just sit there and like watch a movie or something with my family and stitch away. And then I would photograph it and put it in. So it was like a mixed media type design.
So who was willing to sign off on that? I mean, you're working for an NFL team, and then you have you have these like, these gladiators on the field, and then the campaign is like this more like analog kind of embroidery type.
Well, I'm also wondering like how that conversation went. Was it like, are you serious right now? Or was it, yes, this is amazing, I'm just kidding? Because I mean, did you bring in a comp, or you were just like, let me sketch it for you and then?
I don't remember at any point having like any pushback on it. I think one thing that you already get buy-in because there's a concept behind it. There's a purpose for it. It goes with the campaign. It wasn't just like, I had this off-the-wall idea and it has nothing to do with what we're doing. Like it fit the campaign that year. And so I think that mixed with it being unique, and I think I already had some of the trust of, look, I think this is going to do really well, and people were excited about it when they saw it. So it wasn't too hard to get buy-in on that one.
It's kind of cool that as the season progressed, it also showed like how you progressed in that art.
I learned a lot. I haven't done it really since. It was like you spend so much time on that you kind of like, all right, I need to go try something else.
I remember one postseason, we were just in this groove and this like, let's just self-create, let's make things. And honestly, it may have been kind of in the same season that you were doing this, but Roxy Dominguez, who's an illustrator for the MLS right now, she was our head illustrator at the time, and we wanted to do a postseason campaign, and we wanted to do our own font. Has anyone made it their own font internally? Okay, so y'all know the struggles. It's like you finish the font, and then you're like, oh, you need numbers? Oh, you need a hashtag sign? Like, oh, you need an @ sign? Like, that's gonna
accent.
Yeah, so we decided to do painted letters like by this. Roxy has like, she's crazy talented, and she paints, and she did these like, it was chalk and it was just paint. Like imagine getting black like oil or paint and just doing it with your hands, and that happened. It was. We finished the whole entire thing. It was embarrassing, very embarrassing. But social media was like, or the marketing manager, can you write @ so and so? We're like, ooh, we didn't do characters. Can we not do characters? But I was just curious. I mean, like, what are some of the things that you think about when it comes to just creation? Software. Is there a software that you really like that you feel comfortable in? Like personally, Maybe is there something you'd like to see? I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's something really rewarding when you do something that's hands-on and like you're able to touch it and then see it come to life. I think as designers, we're on the computer all the time, so it's really nice when you're able to take a step back and find other creative solutions than it's just Photoshop, because it's like there's so much that you can do in Photoshop, but a lot of it you've seen. And so how do you become unique in that? Photoshop is probably the thing that I'm most comfortable in, but I also depends on like the project. So if it's, layout for something more editorial, InDesign is going to be your best friend. And then if it's something more logo based or illustrative based, you got to get into Illustrator, and then being able to play with all three of them and like using it for its strength is going to help a lot. But yeah, when you can get off the computer and do something hands-on, like they were showing the wood burning and the, leather printing, and being in Nashville, it's like a creator city. So there's so much opportunity of what you see at like different art shows and stuff that can inspire you.
Well, I wanted to follow up with this real quick because what you're talking about is like being innovative and, you know, creating something new. And just kind of, I'm curious, we don't have to name names, but I'm always trying to start a fight. Oh, we can name names. No.
Uh-oh.
But I'm just curious, like, how many times have you had to, or no, let me ask you this. How do you recommend pitching an idea that's just off the wall? You know, because, and I was gonna ask, have you been told no? And how do you manage that? But you can also, if you can help us also, like, how would you recommend, like, if you got this crazy outlandish idea? Because, I mean, I know in photography, we did that quite a bit. It was like, hey, I want to try this, you know, portrait style, and then I want to try this like shadow, you know, not show their face. And I was just like, okay, that's going to be tricky because, you know, they're $1 million faces. It's like, well, everybody knows their hair silhouette. So, you know, those ideas had to be pitched. And I'm sure these ideas had to be pitched. So I'm just curious, well, how do you recommend pitching those ideas? And maybe, is there a story where you've been told no? And if you want to let that person know that they really, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, everybody's told no at some point in their career. Like, you're not going to get everything by. And I think it's finding maybe creative solutions on like that. We're creative problem solvers at the end of the day. So like, maybe you're told no for this, but if you understand why, then you could find a creative solution on an alternative that's still be able to fit what they're looking for and what you're looking for. So that's my general thing for saying no. But for if you're pitching it, I think one is being able to have the buy-in of leadership, like being able to gain their trust along the way so that when you get to a project, they already know that like, well, they know what they're doing. They do a good job. Like, surely, you know, what they're pitching is going to be something really cool. And then on top of that, I think bringing visuals, bringing examples, backing up your idea with concept. Like, I think that's huge. It's not, I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it. I have a reason and purpose, and I think this could be really cool, and this is why. And then I think that's what like some of the leadership wants to hear is like, this is the purpose and the intention, and I'm doing it because of that, and other people will see it too.
Good. Yeah. No, so good. I don't know. I've been told no a lot, and I always would get so frustrated. You know, it's like, you know, y'all don't have time for this. I'm like, no, we'll make time for this. Like, you know, or we don't have the budget for it. And I was just telling someone the other day, some of the photo shoots we did, honestly, it would be me going to Home Depot, you know, in Florida and just buying stuff. You know, instead of a gel, we would just get like, you know, something that is made for the garage, or, you know, repels mosquitoes. And it was just, I mean, honestly, it was hundreds of dollars. It wasn't thousands, but it was personal money. And I just kind of wanted to share that because I know in talking to folks these past few days, it's, you know, we'll talk about campaigns, and we talk about like, you know, getting the buy-in. And I don't know. I mean, I just didn't have that. I don't know what it was. For me, we had to like show it first. And so a lot of times we would do what was asked, and we would do an additional shoot for us, or, you know, do the design, but also do an alternate. And so I know for me that helped. And I always would get frustrated because I'm like, so we got to make it first, and it might not get approved. But I think it just depends who your leader is. And
some people just like really need to see it first.
Yeah.
See it to believe it. But it sounds like even for that, like you went out and you did something, you found a different solution by like building it yourself rather than feeling like you need to spend thousands of dollars. So you're not necessarily asking leadership to spend too much money because you're like, I found this solution where I can build it. We had a media day set where we like built these boxes and kind of stacked them, and it was inspired from this thing that we saw at a museum tour that we did. But then we were like, how are we going to bring that to life? Like, that seems like that'd either be really expensive to bring someone in. So we're out there in the middle of summer, you know, spray painting boxes and putting helmets on there and finding knickknacks and seeing where they kind of fit into place. And it just fit the brand and felt right. And we did it ourselves. And that was kind of cool too.
So besides like just opening Photoshop, jumping into software, and staring at a screen like so many of us do, what do you do personally as a creative to keep the inspiration flowing? Taking a walk, visiting a museum, like you said. What do you do?
I'm a big fan of traveling, and I think there's a lot of world to see out there, and there's a lot of inspiration all around the world. So like some of it's these museums, some of it's you find it in nature, and you just have a moment that you're like, wow, like this is so cool that this is like the world that we live in. And then you're able to take that and kind of like a refreshed perspective, or maybe you see something in nature, or maybe you see something in this different country that you never expected to put into your designs. And then like you never know where inspiration is going to strike you. But I think that's what's kind of cool about traveling and opening your mind to different perspectives.
That's so true. I just got back from a trip to Japan.
Yeah.
And, a lot of people go there and get very inspired and come back and, they kind of put it in their creative work. And it was all that. But I also visited Philadelphia last year. And, you wouldn't think of Philadelphia like in the same vein as like Tokyo or something. But I came back from Philadelphia. I was super inspired by being there, too. So you're right. Just sometimes getting out of your comfort zone and getting out of home is a huge help.
Yeah, you're stuck. Just get away from the computer, because sometimes you're stuck because you're staring at that screen and you're not going to find the answer in there. So like maybe you'll find it somewhere else if you just take that walk or
Absolutely.
Go to a museum or look around you. Yeah.
I'm going to switch gears just a little bit because I kind of started to realize, again, I keep referencing these conversations we have in the last few days, and it's just so interesting. Like, for one, we had an amazing speaker lineup, and they just honestly, like, I feel like opened Pandora's box on what should we be thinking about or how we should be pushing. And someone asked, I think it was Tim Tatter, said, who's in the room, and he used a few, let's call them titles, and I started to realize it's extremely like the title really doesn't mean a lot. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm all about the title. But at the same time, a creative director could mean something completely different, or an art director, a design. I know we have partnership designers here, but at the end of the day, I know they're just designers, right? Like, amen. I know, and I'm sure partnership designers don't just touch partnership stuff. Like, so, but I get it. It's, probably, no offense, probably how they had to make that role and get it sold. But I'm just curious, like, what does your day-to-day look like? What is, and you don't have to get into too much detail, but like maybe what are the things that you really focus on and help the team with?
Yeah, so it's an exciting time at the Titans with a new stadium coming in 2027. So a lot of the job since I've gotten there is figuring out some of the stuff like the stadium signage, what that's going to look like.
Y'all have already gotten it, or it's?
We're like exploring it.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Yeah. Wait, confirming the stadium or?
No, I was just wondering if y'all are moving in or you're like in the pitch phase.
No, they've started digging and.
Oh, it's done. Okay.
So we're just in the more like figuring out what the graphics look like. And,
oh my God.
Yeah, the architecture's all there. So
it's going to be a dark period in your life. Wayfinding, environmental graphics. Oh my God, it's cool.
Yeah.
And you don't want some architecture firm to do it, right?
Yeah.
But that's
they
a
asked
big
me what
undertaking.
Pantone color the seats should be.
Oh wow.
That's a bold question.
That's pretty crazy. You're making that decision. Right.
So you become like an interior decorator of a stadium almost, right?
Yeah.
But what else? What else are you like kind of consumes your day?
Yeah, so that's a big portion. And then we also opened a sales center, which we called Titan's House. And that's, another portion, another extension of the brand. And then on the same time, you've got training camp starting in a couple weeks and a new coaching staff and new players. And so you're trying to sell this team in this building for the next 3 years. And what does that look like? And like, how do you build that brand and put that out on social media and all of those things, make sure the website's updated, make sure the app is on brand, while you're also kind of like living in 2027 and are like, what's partnership in the new stadium going to look like? And what's the font going to be on 80,000 signs throughout the stadium? Like, no pressure, but like.
It'll be there for 20 years, no pressure.
Yeah.
Or in Dodger Stadium's situation, like, how old is that?
It's like 63 years old now.
Crazy. Has anyone been to Dodger Stadium in the audience? Give us some interesting facts about it, because I've had a chance to visit and it's just extremely unique. I'm sure you guys have.
Well, first of all, I was not there for opening day of Dodger Stadium in 1962. I am getting kind of up there now, but I wasn't there for that. A fun fact is, I guess it's one of the few symmetrical stadiums in baseball.
Like literally perfectly.
Left and right field are the same. Yes.
That's super rare in baseball. And then the theme is extremely unique, right? Because a lot of times teams will embrace like, oh, our wayfinding is the campaign, or even here in the Lions, like they have such good branding, but it's like also related to their like advertising. But when I walked Dodger Stadium, completely different. Colors are different.
Well, I feel you, Christine, because we had to redo all the wayfinding signage when we renovated in 2013. And I think I literally had to approve like 1,200 different wayfinding signs. And I actually had to go out in the stadium and walk and make sure the arrows are pointing the right way.
Yeah.
So
nothing's worse than being at a stadium and being like, this doesn't make sense.
Oh, man.
But it's also kind of ruined me, because now I can't travel and see a stadium and not be like, oh, I need to go take a lap and see what the signage looks like taking pictures, sending it back, being like, we need to do this or not do that. And yeah.
That's how you know you're creative, when you're watching sports and you're not even watching the game. You're like, oh, let me see what's in the background. Let me go to that camera view. Like, oh, how'd they get that shot? So yeah, I just kind of wanted to ask, because there's just so many different roles and you wore many hats. But I know is it fair to say you've transitioned from being on the team to managing the team, obviously? Can you talk a little bit about that? I know, like, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Sometimes you're managing people who are like your peers. You know, how's that transition been for you?
Yeah, so I think I kind of started as a graphic designer at the 49ers and then made my way up to manager. And some of that was just, there was a job that needed to be done. And so like we needed somebody that was making sure the projects were getting assigned out and who was working on them and tracking down. We didn't have a project manager at the time, like tracking down information that you needed and all those things. And I was like, well, I've done this before. And I also, my brain operates like I need to know what I need to be working on and who's working on what. So I was kind of naturally already doing that job. And then while I was there, I also got senior manager. And so I think early on when I first transitioned and you're working with your peers and now you're the manager, there was a little hesitation, but I think it's that same thing where if you can kind of get their trust and buy-in and hopefully support is like you're also still on the same team, that makes it a little bit easier. But I think along the way I've also learned managing creatives is a very unique like field of management, because you want to make sure they're inspired and that they feel supported. And like, I think each creative is so entirely different on how they want to be managed or how it's like best for them to be managed. And I think some of that just comes down to empathy and understanding each person and what makes them tick and what's the best way to support them. And so there was a book I read, called Chasing Tigers or Herding Tigers. Yep. And it's like, it makes a lot of sense for creatives because you don't want to stop any of their creativity, but also you got to keep them on the right track, you know?
It's always a balance, right? Because you want to keep stoking that creative fire.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have other stakeholders in your organization that, you know, they maybe want something a certain way or they have feedback that doesn't necessarily agree with what your designer did. And you as the manager have to start kind of being the go-between and start, you know, try to reconcile those relationships as well.
You got to defend them too. It's like, it comes down to, at the end of the day, I think if you're doing good management, you're kind of being the security blanket of like, you know, don't mess with them. Like, let them do their thing. Like, let them be creative and
let them cook.
Let them cook.
I'm curious, because I don't know. I'm always big on like finding out who and I love to hear like movers and shakers. Was there a boss, and maybe it wasn't like a creative boss. Maybe it was, you know, like the president or the CMO or whatever. Was there a boss or two that like changed your career, and like what did they do specifically? Because a lot of people here manage creatives. And I thought you were going to say creatives have a lot of problems, which we do. But I was just curious, was there someone that, taught you something, and what was it? Because honestly, we do have a lot of problems, right? Like, we're very emotional, we're, very artistic, we think a lot, we get stressed. So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
I think you're going to like this answer, but it's Jose Lopez.
Oh, okay.
I met him here, so like definitely take the time to meet the people around you back in 2015.
Creative director for the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, so that was kind of that full circle moment of like I met him in 2015 and he kind of just like took me in as a mentor, and he would give me advice on how to apply for jobs, what kind of leave behinds. Like I was sending thank you boxes. I remember I applied for one job with, I think, the Pelicans, and I sent a box because he was like, who doesn't love getting mail? Who doesn't love getting a box? Like, especially creatives. And so you open the box and it was like a basketball goal and then a little basketball that they could shoot with a thank you card.
Oh my God.
So just things like that like can set you apart. And like, It didn't take me that much time, but it makes a pretty big difference and like an impact. And for the record, I still didn't get that job, but it was worth a shot.
Intended.
Yeah. And then same with like the 49ers position. He's the one that told me that it was open and was like, you should definitely apply. And he'll take an hour of his time and just talk to you. So throughout my whole career, he'll text me to this day and just be like, hey, good luck. I know your season's starting. I hope it goes really well. And he's been a great friend, a great mentor. And that's definitely one of those things you can get out of this kind of conference.
Shout out Jose.
Shout out Jose.
Yeah, no, Jose is a good friend. But my takeaway in that is like, find a mentor, like
Absolutely.
Don't wonder, go with intent, and then just ask. You'd be surprised. I've had multiple speakers this year, specifically yesterday, that said they are at the level where they wish someone would, take them up, because they are at that level where like this information cannot, I need to make an impact. And so it's just so interesting that you say that. And it's something that I always encourage. I don't know who said it yesterday, but it was like, the room will start with 200, and then like maybe 10 will reach out, but one will follow up. And then there ends up, I think it was Aaron. There was Aaron Cooper was talking about the butterfly effect. And I'm a big believer in that. Honestly, that's one of the things that I would encourage everyone here. Where's Marissa? Is Marissa here right now from the Red Sox? She was here yesterday. She's around somewhere. She was one that literally told me, like, I am looking to mentor designers. Like, Can you help me with that? It's just so humbling, right? Like, I wish, dude, how different would our careers be if we had like a conference like this, or even just a platform, or just someone to say like, hey, you're doing it wrong. Because I think a lot of us are the first time in our roles, like, hey, congratulations, you're an art director, cool. Who was the one before me? No one. It's yours. Like, so where do I get training? Oh, there's none. Especially on management. So I think that's something to, I don't know. Talk to me about Ross. Did you have a mentor?
I actually did not have a mentor, but I wish I did. Like you were saying, I wish we had something like this to come to. So thank you, Chris, for starting this.
Oh, no, absolutely. I told you in the beginning, this was out of like a very dark place when Connect started. It was just, frustration, like the things which, of course, that's what a podcast and interviews are for. We're able to pick your brain. And if you guys have a question, just raise your hand and I'll just stop and say, what's your question? Because you have like a rock star resume. You've kind of like, worked for these amazing brands, and you're female, and you're just, you're super creative. Like the things that you're saying, I would never do. Like that is a lot of, and you just say it with ease. You say it with a smile. You're like, but we're different, right? Like that's just not the way my brain works. I'm like, oh man, I think maybe I'm like the negative creative. I'm like, that's a lot of work.
I was going to say, mine's probably just like that optimism. Like maybe it doesn't always go the way that you're supposed to, but sometimes I have just that crazy optimism about things. It's just going to work out eventually, right?
That's a good thing. I want to ask you a somewhat loaded question, and it's a surprisingly controversial question when when I've been talking to all you out there, but does being a sports fan help you be a better sports creative?
It is a bit of a loaded question. I think there's a balance because I've had people apply for jobs that said, I don't like sports. And I'm like, why are you applying for this job? Because, we work crazy hours. Like, how are you going to spend your nights and weekends and enjoy it? And like, I think even just working a game, if you're a sports fan, you're really in that moment. And so you're working the game, but you're also like, how cool is this to like come here and do this every day? Like, I'm doing my dream job. And I think being able to like say that and be excited about it is really helpful. But then you also have the people that are like way too avid of fans. And you're like, you're going to be way too into this. Like, I need you to take like 2 steps back from the brand. Because at the end of the day, like, you can't be so connected to the on-field success or not success that can't like define your brand. Your brand has to be bigger than what is happening on the field.
I think you're right. I think I've been this is my 20th year with the Dodgers, and I still have to kind of remind myself when I walk into that door and I see the big marquee, I have to remind myself almost daily that, what if 12-year-old Ross were to know that this was in his future and just to not take it for granted.
Yeah. I feel like sometimes you do that, right? You just show up to work, you go through the motions, you leave. Maybe you're stressed, maybe you're frustrated. But then sometimes you take that time to like, I know I would go sit, we worked at the stadium at the 49ers. So every once in a while, I just go sit in the stands, it's empty, eat your lunch, you've got the sunshine on you, and you're like, you know what? Like, this is really cool. Like, I work here. And like, you tell other people that, and sometimes you're so in it that you forget to take that step back. But it's really cool what we do. Like, it's really fun. It's a great opportunity.
I use this term very humbly, but I truly believe everyone in this room, like, we're influencers, and maybe not in the sense of like YouTubers or gamers, but I know for sure, like, when we're in circles, y'all definitely are the most creative people in the room. In addition to that, you're working with a religion, of a brand. And like Ross was saying, you curate those videos, you make those intro moments. I mean, I know I go to a game early because I want to see that intro video, and I want to see like, does the intro video look like what was on Instagram? Does it look like, the messages I'm getting? And it definitely ends up being I always want creatives to have more confidence, and I'd like to say you're actually an influencer, like, maybe not in the sense of social media's terms, but in the true term of someone who's influencing people, And so I would say, like, you don't have to be like a 20-year veteran or a 10-year veteran to like give someone an opportunity. It's to answer your question, Ross. I know you didn't ask me, but I would say you cannot even remotely be a fanboy or a fangirl. Like, you got to know the game, know the brand, but you got to be a marketer. Like, you have to push, branding. And don't get me wrong, like, I grew up in Texas and Houston, and Craig Biggio was my idol. And when I first started, he was retiring. I was like, I'm sorry, not my idol, but my favorite player. And I've done some photo shoots with him and things, but I'm a real big believer in, like, it's a profession. Yes, it's fun. At times you may travel. At times you're doing things that the city is, rallied around. But at the same time, I just look at it as like, you can't forget it's a craft, and these are subjects, these are heroes in that craft, and unfortunately they move on, right? And like, of course you have legends, but like at the same time, for me, it's always been a problem if you're too, like, if you're talking to me the whole day about the game last night, that just doesn't help the creative flow. Now if we're talking about a post or a graphic, like, hey, what was the score? What was his results? Yes. But like, I personally got to the point where I was looking ahead of the score. Like, it didn't matter what the score was. I was about positioning the team to look really good, like in win or lose. So, I mean, no offense to anyone, that's just my opinion, but don't get me wrong, you gotta love the team. And quite frankly, there's teams that you might work for that you might have hated growing up, but
I'm never working for Alabama.
Alabama, don't ever call Christine for any role. Well, you know what? Let's let's get into some hot seat questions. And these are easy. Which, by the way, like I said, you had a question, interrupt. Yeah, I'll absolutely. I'll open the floor for a few questions if that's cool. But let's just run through these. These are quick. These are witty. Let's just
Off the top of your head,
off the top of your head. Ross, you want to start it?
you go with the first one.
All right. Your favorite team besides the team you work for? Who do you root for?
The Auburn Tigers.
Okay. Oh, do you mind me asking why? Did you go there?
Yeah, I went to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
My freshman year was the national championship with Cam Newton, and my senior year was the kick six, and we went back to the national championship. So easy to be a fan.
How very fortunate.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Your desk or office, is it organized or messy?
It's pretty organized.
Oh, I thought you were going
I
to say
hate you
messy.
people.
I totally thought you were going to say messy.
You thought I just looked like I.
No, you're well put together, which is why I thought it was messy.
Okay. No, I feel like if my stuff is like cleaned up and organized, then like I have much clearer mind, and even if it's all shoved in a drawer, it's just out of the way, so you don't have to see it. But definitely on the organized side.
All right, I'm going to do a quick audience poll because I'm super curious. A show of hands, I'm going to do both. Whose desk, office area is just like messy? Okay, valid. Okay, and then whose like office desk area is like organized, kind of well put to like. Okay, I would say more organized and.
Those are my people. The better question is your desktop organized or messy on your computer?
Oh, that's like it's like the underwear drawer. I don't know about that.
That stresses me out when it's just like stuff everywhere. I have to at least have them in folders or something.
Okay, go.
Controversial, sorry.
Without answering, without answering as your own team, what is I don't want to say the best uniform. We need to change that on this question. But who has like one of the best uniforms out there? It could be any league, any sport.
I think Awesome. Easy. Traditional, clean. No, I'd probably go with Miami FC. And I don't know if it's just me with the pink, but like I think they've done a really great job with that brand as a whole. It's super exciting to see it, and then to see pink on a soccer field is just
It's bold.
and done well, and it fits Miami, and it makes
is a beautiful
sense.
kit.
And yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a few rebrands, and it's always difficult. It's like, what color hasn't been used, but it's also relevant to the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to agree. They nailed it there.
Oh, I've done a few rebrands.
little humble brag there.
What sports, this is another loaded question. What sports design or gimmick, what sports design gimmick or trope needs to go away?
I feel like you guys are really setting me up here.
I know you're like no one's
Say
gonna talk to you
something,
after
I'm gonna
this.
upset some people. It's probably ripped paper and tape.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Whoever I just offended, my apologies.
Dang, you may start a movement here. Sounds like everybody's aligned with that.
I think we're all guilty of using it at some point, though.
At
That's
some
why it needs to
point.
go
And
away.
probably that one photo that has like the lights coming in on it. That the stadium lights. You
Like
just
when you
Google
Google
search
it?
it. Yeah, first thing that comes up.
Which, by the way, if y'all guys didn't notice, this is Christine's work, and thank you for providing these things. We got a chance to see these, and this is just like a small glimpse. Make sure you follow her. I didn't want to get sidetracked, but I did want to mention that. And I will tell a quick story. I personally remember the first day I got my hands on a like textured paper, like high res textured paper.
Yeah.
I was like, right click save. It's high res.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'd give you like a tiny bit more credit if you scanned it in yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you went to go find just the right paper and you were like, this is perfect for our brand and it makes sense to the concept, then I give you credit for it.
Valid.
We'll
All right.
accept it.
Yeah.
Speaking about assets, what is your like go-to typeface? If your Tombstone, or maybe not your Tombstone, maybe your Tombstone.
In case I go outside and get hit.
You have to write a tattoo on your arm,
Yeah.
whatever. What's your go-to typeface?
That's a tough one. Because I love typography, and I think like finding the right type for the project you're working on is such like a satisfying moment. Or like making your own if there's not one that exists. I'd probably, if I needed to pick one, would be like a Bodoni or like a really nice serif, something that feels kind of thick to thin and put together. And I think those ones are kind of cool, but I don't necessarily have like a go-to.
Okay.
Just love really good typography.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Tad's presentation yesterday was just like perfect typography. I was talking to him earlier. Yesterday evening, and I was just like, dude, I was so frustrated and mad. Like everything he was showing was just flawless. Like, great typography, great kerning. You have to agree. Like, I think a lot of people forget like type is probably this may be a little generous, but about 50% of the design for me. Maybe not 50. I'd say 40. Yeah. I'd say the photo is probably another 40, and then we just have to fill in the blanks. Yeah. But yeah, the serifs are just so beautiful, and it's very hard to mix that in with sports.
Yeah.
All right, what else we got?
Another team, organization, or company that consistently puts out good work that you really admire. It doesn't have to be sports.
That's like, there's so many different ways you can go with that, right? Like, I'm super inspired by like the fashion industry and editorial things.
Really?
I went to, like, speaking of traveling, I went to Italy and went to like the Ferragamo Museum. And so it was like the history of how he built his shoes. And I just found that really fascinating. And it was also like, it was kind of cool because he ended up like having to pass it over to his wife. And so it was like a pretty female owned company, but the name on it was like his. And so it was kind of an interesting like way to go see how that was built. But I think kind of more sports focused, F1 has really gotten my attention lately. I think it's just cool what they've done with the Netflix series. And then even when you see their social media, they like really, you get to know who the players are, their personalities, their designs are really nice when they have those moments. And then they have those like really fun, organic kind of things that grab your attention too. So
great stuff. You're right.
Yeah, agree. Okay. Let's end on this one. Give us a creative or creatives, or just someone that has inspired you, that maybe has, influenced a lot of like how you design. Or I'm sorry, not design, just essentially operate. That's probably a better question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like my design is very much like it's about the team and the brand that you're with. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint. Like there's one like style or thing that inspires me, but I think maybe this anecdote, it's a inception of podcast, because I was listening to a podcast and it had John Williams, the composer, and he was talking about when he was working on E.T. that he was trying to compose the song of When the Bike Goes Over the Moon. And he was like, it just like wasn't quite hitting, like the movie was complete and cut and like everything was done. And he was like, I just can't get the music to like open quite right, trying to hit these cuts of the movie. And so then Steven Spielberg goes, you know what, turn off the movie, don't look at it, make the music soar, like make it perfect. And then I'll go recut my movie to match the music. And I was like, that is the coolest example of two people that are like the best in their field that come together to collaborate to make the best possible outcome that they can get. And I just think that's such a cool, like inspiring story to hear that like we could all probably take something from.
So good.
Love that.
Yeah. That says a lot about collaborative work, and especially like sometimes it's difficult to work for the photographer or a designer or a videographer or motion graphics person. Shout out motion graphics people. We were talking yesterday. No, you guys are you guys and gals are complex, but it's difficult because everyone feels they're the best in that medium, and that's true. That's such a incredible. Hey, you know what? Let's change the font, or you know what? Why don't you shoot?
Egos aside, and like just come together to be the best product that we can be.
Yeah, hey, why don't you shoot first and then we'll design, or hey, why don't you show me the video you guys want to make and then let's work backwards from that. There's really no perfect, correct route to create. So no, I love that. That's great. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I mean, we got
having me.
This is day 2, so we have so much more. Where can we follow you? Best. Where can we follow you best? LinkedIn?
Probably Twitter. Yeah.
Okay.
Z_Zambetti.
Z_Zambetti.
Z.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Everyone, thank you for being here, the live audience. Let's give a round of applause just to know we're here, know we're live. Start day 2. I hope you guys learned something. If there's something that you heard that inspired you, or one of your colleagues should hear, let us know in the comments. Forward it to a friend. That's one thing I always do personally. Going back to what you were saying about Jose or your mentor, I'm a big believer in just like, if there was anything in this, I would just forward it and say, hey, 5 minutes, all you. So do that.
Anytime.
We encourage you to do that. We will talk to you soon, and we'll see you at next year's Connect, MLC Connect. All right, guys.
Thanks, guys.